Good morning. Today's Sunday school lesson is based on the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 29 through 34, and chapter 3, verses 35 through 36. Glow sticks. No matter how old you get, there is always something mesmerizing about glow sticks. Whether as a kid outside on a summer's evening or walking through the nighttime streets of Disney World, glow sticks have a way of adding excitement to any occasion. Of course, one of the most interesting things about glow sticks is how to get them to work. Instead of an on and off switch or running on batteries, glow sticks need to be cracked before they come to life. They need to be broken. Once broken, glow sticks can fulfill the purpose for which they were created. Glow sticks are much like followers of Christ. All throughout the Bible, God used broken people to further his purposes. Brokenness, the bending of our will, and the humbling of our hearts is a prerequisite to being used by God. We won't glow with love for God until we're broken and humbled by God's love for us. Why is it necessary for people to be broken and humbled in order for God to work through them? Why must humility be present if we are to faithfully follow Jesus? The Gospels teach us about one of the greatest men who ever lived, a man who was so humble that he knew he paled in comparison to the man he was called to point to. This man was John the Baptist. John was a forerunner to the Messiah, and he humbly ran in his own lane, fulfilling his own call. He decreased so that the reputation and ministry of Jesus could increase. Now, as we get started here, I want to clear up one thing. I am Mr. John, and I am a Baptist, and that may be why Ryan asked me to teach this lesson. However, I am not John the Baptist. Now let's discuss a few things about his background. John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin. He was the son of Elizabeth and Zachariah. Now the connection between Jesus and John the Baptist started way early in their lives. If you remember the story, Mary went to visit her cousin Elizabeth, who was pregnant with John the Baptist. At the time, Mary was pregnant with Jesus. When she approached Elizabeth, John the Baptist leapt in Elizabeth's womb at the presence of Jesus. John lived as a Nazirite. If you remember what that means, he was set apart as a special servant of God. And having taken the vow of Nazirite, that meant that no razor touched his head or his face, and he gave up drinking any alcoholic beverages. So from an early age, John was set apart to serve God. As part of his special calling, he lived in the wilderness, and he survived on locusts and honey and wore animal skins as clothing. Now, John had his own dedicated following. His followers considered him to be a prophet, to be a very important person. However, John himself made it clear that he was not the Messiah. As we consider the life and ministry of this man, think about these questions. Who are some people in your life that have pointed you toward the Messiah? What are some ways that they did this? In chapter 1, verses 29 through 34, John the Baptist distinguishes his baptism with water with Jesus' baptism with the Holy Spirit. Water is an earthly symbol of our death to sin and our resurrection with Jesus. The Holy Spirit is the very power of God come down and given to us through Jesus Christ. In chapter 3, verses 25 through 30, John the Baptist reminds and even scolds his followers that Jesus is not just some rival teacher to John, but is in fact the very Son of God. John the Baptist did not come to compete with Jesus, but to lead the way to Jesus. In chapter 3, verses 31 through 36, the gospel writer John, the brother of James, gives us a great summary of how John the Baptist pointed to Jesus' supremacy. Jesus is from heaven, while John was from earth. Jesus spoke the very words of God, while John the Baptist spoke about Jesus. Jesus gives the Spirit and life, while John affirmed Jesus' testimony and authority. John the Baptist found complete joy in his subordinate role to Jesus. He recognized Jesus as the groom, the center of attention, the long-awaited Messiah. John's job was to make sure the groom was exalted and not hindered by any distractions. Like John the Baptist, we are called to point people to Jesus and away from ourselves. However, pointing others to Christ is impossible unless we intentionally use the gifts God has given us for His glory, not as a distraction that brings attention to ourselves. Our mission is to point people to Jesus. We should do everything we can to avoid getting in the way. Thank you and have a blessed day.